checking. For those of you who can't see the video, we're recording in a very special way today. So I'm just double checking my equipment as we get started. But I am your host, Christy Smallwood. I am Chief Strategic Guide for Eagle Eye Strategies based here in Louisville, Kentucky. And Small Business Small Talk is one of those shows for small business owners and developers who like to be very serious about what you do, but don't take yourself very seriously at all, because that is the whole feel of this podcast and video cast. If you guys are not watching today, you're going to be missing out, because this is a very special episode in which my guest is actually here in my home office with me and / studio, if you will. And so we're excited because we have already, in the green room today was my kitchen. So we started with some great conversation. I give her the 5-cent tour of the whole place. And then now we're here recording Small Business Small Talk. And I'm super excited about it. Again, because this is round 2. There's going to be a blooper reel, I'm sure, for this one. So, those should be so fun for later. But Small Business Small Talk, what you're getting yourself into, is a podcast to help educate and empower and engage you into what you do better so that you can go out into the community and do big things. Now, with that, also, we like to be entertaining while we're at it. Like, again, we don't take ourselves so seriously that we can't have some fun while we do it. And I do want to thank my sponsor partner, which is the Chamber of St. Matthews, because a lot of my guests this season 2 of 2020 is coming from the Chamber of St. Matthews, and it's been such a pleasure to get to know everybody a little deeper while I'm doing these interviews. So I love it, and I highly encourage any of you, anywhere, get involved in your local chamber. If you are in the state of Kentucky or Southern Indiana, you need to tap into the Chamber of St. Matthews, because, we're pretty awesome that way. So with that, I do want to welcome in my guest today. And for those of you who missed the green room sessions, again, my green room this time was out in the kitchen, where we gave ourselves some mimosas to start a Monday morning. We'll do the... Ooh. Sounded just as good the second time as it did the first. So I kind of need it with the technical, tryouts of this thing. So I do want to welcome in this guest. This guest is very special to me because she's been a lot of fun to get to know. And I appreciate what she does as a business, because it's really hard. It's Misty Enright with Misty Enright Photography. And you have done photography for...
ever and ever. Totally forever. No, 16 years.
Okay.
This year is 16 years in business.
And you've not always been local either.
No.
So.
We have been local 7 years of that. I started my business in Spur, Connecticut, where we were living. My husband and I were on a GE kind of rotation, and we ended up in California for a little bit. We were in Connecticut for a long time, and then we ended up staying. He's from the Northeast. It was easy, so we just stayed up there for a while. We were there almost 10 years. So once we moved and he stopped working for GE, I was like, can I start my business, please? My turn?
My turn.
Because we never knew, in a rotation program, it's hard, especially when you're married. We were just married. We didn't know how long we were going to be anywhere. So they were like 3 to 9 months. Surprise, And so it was really hard for me to try to hold a job or try to figure out life. And the other people in the rotation program weren't working. Or weren't married,
Right.
Not work. Of course they were working. But so we moved to Connecticut. He thought it was a great opportunity to be close to his parents again. He had been in Ohio for college, for grad school. And so we lived there for a long time. And it was great. So I started my business actually as a real estate photographer.
Really? I didn't know that part.
Yeah. So I worked for an agent with Coldwell Banker, and my job was data entry and picking up her dry cleaning and fun stuff like that.
That job.
Yes, I was that person. And then her photographer for one of the homes that we were going to list, her photographer didn't show. And I told her, I was like, well, I've studied photography. I've been around it my whole life. I have a great camera. I'd be happy to, it's kind of my dream.
Right.
I'm using this job to pay for my photography business one day. So I just said, I would be happy to show you what I can do. And she was like, oh my God, these are so good. So it just kind of went from there. I started shooting a couple of headshots of the realtors in the office. And then one of the realtors came to me and was like, I'm getting married. She's like, this is no big deal. This is my third. It's my husband's second.
Like, no big deal.
This is no pressure, but we don't have a huge budget. And, at this point, I was being paid by her to do the errands, plus I was getting paid by the agency to do homes, plus I had gotten a couple of agents to give me money, but I had never made enough, like a big amount of money for a job.
Right.
And so she was like, oh, we don't have a big budget. I'm going to throw you like $500. Can you do that? And I was like, I can do that. You're green, like totally to the situation. And
and let's face it, 16 years ago, $500 was like...
It's a little different.
A little different.
A little different. So it was super not stressful. The wedding was in a church 5 minutes from my house. They got married in the church. We did the pictures outside of the church, and then they had the cake inside the church, just like what I was used to growing up here in Kentucky, very similar. And I was like, wow, this is easy. But when I looked at the pictures, I was like, wow, this is really fun. Like, I love, changing directions and changing lighting and having to change settings and, basically being a spaz all over their wedding day.
That's being creative.
Right. But I mean, you go from one thing to another and you focus here and you focus here and, for all the action that's happening in front of you, 10 more things is happening behind you. And, it's all so exciting. So I get home and my husband's like, how was it? Thinking that I was going to be like, it was so long and so boring. And I was like, I love it. I think I found what I want to do. And he was like, okay, let's do it. And so we did.
Well, that's awful nice.
Yeah. I mean, I still had to work at the realtor for a little bit until I made some, we had a goal for,
consistent
for seed money. And then once I hit that goal, I picked up her dry cleaning one last time and I was like, sorry.
Peace out.
And I wasn't a young kid. I think that's the difference, like I was trying to do math, I was close to 30, when I started. So I had a bet, like I wasn't just a 18, 19, 20-year-old who was like, I can do anything, and I love those people now because I see them all the time, like on Instagram and stuff. I was not that person. And it was a totally, 16 years ago was a totally different time. And you tell somebody you want to start your own business and they're like, good luck with that. See you later. I even remember when I went to the bank, I opened an account in Stanford at the TD Bank, and the guy said photography. He kept calling it photography.
Photography.
Mm-hmm. And so I opened a business account with my seed money that I had made from the realtor, and I was so proud of myself. I had the state, sales tax permit. I had all the paperwork. I had my DBA from the city. I had all my paperwork in line. I went to the bank and I was like, I don't know what you need to see because I wasn't a businesswoman.
Right.
I was becoming a businesswoman. I wasn't one yet, so I laid out all the paperwork and I met with the business banker, and it was the bank, next to our apartment. It wasn't like, it was the bank that I chose because they were such a great business bank, and he kept calling it photography. And I was like, dude, really? Like, come on, help me.
Is that a red flag? Like, should you?
No. No, they were great. It's just, he told me as we were filling out the applications, he said, new businesses, he's like, I'm sure I'll see you here in a year to close your account because new businesses just don't do well.
Well, thanks for that.
And so I don't know if you're a sports fan, if you've seen the Michael Jordan, like The Last Dance, like the joke in our house since we've watched that is, well, that was all the motivation I needed. So Jordan just basically sits on a couch and he's like, he told me that my dribbling stunk, so that was all the motivation I needed. And then I went off and I scored 80 on him, So when this guy at the bank in a suit told me that my business wasn't going to succeed, it was literally all the motivation I needed. And I kept thinking about that in the back of my head for the first few years, like, okay, little bank guy who couldn't say photography. Like, I'm going to show you that I can do it. It wasn't for myself. It wasn't for my husband. It wasn't for my family. It was for the guy that wrong. Spite is very motivating. No.
In all honesty, it can be. Like,
it can, yeah.
Especially in those times. I know my personal experience this year has been, I try to do so much. Like you get to see my whiteboard. Not everybody sees the
Right.
whiteboard, right?
It's great.
All of the stuff. And there's a lot of detail work. And I'm not a person that can stay in detail work for super long.
No.
Because I need... we need to be people.
Right.
And so people take up time, just like detail work on computer takes up time.
Right.
And if I'm stuck in the detail too long... So you get drained and you get a little discouraged and all that kind of stuff. So then all of the mental things start to happen at that point. And I was just in a funk.
Yeah.
And I had somebody in the same industry as me had said to me in February that he didn't really consider me competition. And then... I totally blew it over and I didn't think about it again. I was like, oh, he just doesn't know enough about what I do to understand that, oh yes, I really am.
Right.
And then some. And then we had a moment where there was an overstepping of bounds by his team into my lane in a group.
Oh, yeah. And
there was no, like, I raised my hand later. I did fine in the group because I was, like, super upset. And, like, quite frankly, I was fucking pissed off. And I was like, I'm out of this conversation right now. And I was like, I don't even know what to do with it. So I talked to the leaders about it. And I said, here is how I sent a note to everybody's, the awesome time. Let's remind ourselves. And I'm like, I'm not the leader of this group, though.
Right.
Spoke to the leader and I said, here's how I feel about it. If it happens again, I'm out. Like, you need to understand, I do well to play well with others. I expect the same from everybody else.
Right.
So there has been zero acknowledgement. And from that, apparently on the other side of the table, like the details I don't get to hear about a whole lot until way after the fact. They're like, yeah, he was a little upset and he tried to throw his weight around. And I was like, and then what? And they're like, yeah, he just basically, bottom line, he still thinks that I'm not competition. And I was like, oh, watch this shit. So you talk about going, it was like hitting that supercharge in a vehicle.
Oh, totally.
Full throttle.
Yeah.
Full throttle. So yeah, I get it. Like it can be a catalyst to drive you on when you're just empty. Like I love living for purpose. Like it's all ooey gooey feely stuff. It's wonderful to live for the good thing. But even Darren Hardy had said, what are you fighting against?
Right.
Because sometimes it's the fight that keeps us going further.
And it's so funny, memory is an amazing thing. It's an amazing thing. I work in a business of memories, like I'm capturing memories for other people. So like, my memory, I'm guilty of not shooting, my family's events because I want to live and I want to create the memories. I don't want to just capture them and experience them later. I want, Christmas morning, I want to experience that with my girls. I don't want to just take awesome pictures of them opening presents. I could, but I don't. But memory is an incredible thing because I don't remember this guy's name and I have a photographic memory for names. I know, that's so dumb. I can't even believe, but it's true. If you say your name or like I've met you and I have your name, I'll never forget it. And it's gotten me into trouble because, I've shot a lot of weddings over the years and I'll see a groomsman or a bridesmaid out, especially a groomsman. Sometimes the bridesmaids do remember me, but I'll see a groomsman out and this would happen in Connecticut. I would see them somewhere and I'd be like, oh my gosh, Phil, how are you? And they would look at me like I had three heads and I would be like, oh, right. To you, I was only in your life story for like a minute. But for me, your face was photographed, photoshopped like 100 million times. And I know every fold of your head and
all your
shrug of your
pores,
shoulders
right?
and all the things about you. But for you, in terms of I don't think I ever knew this guy at the bank's name, but I can tell you what he was wearing. I could tell you what direction in his office we were sitting. I could tell you all the things. I have a memory of that moment because that was the moment he told me I wasn't going to succeed. And I was like, I'm going to take all this in. Oh, look at the picture on the wall. Look at the suit you're wearing. I was a little Dwight Schrute-ish, his suit color combination. It was a little mustardy and brown, for the summer. I thought it was a little odd. So, details like that. But it is funny what... It is funny.
I mean, you did say photography, so... Still...
I know. Misty Enright Photography. And I just came home and I was like, maybe that's what I should change my name to. Let's be different, you know.
And then everybody still pronounce it photography.
Right. It's like the movie, what's that movie, That Thing You Do? When they're the Wonders, but the guy called it the Oneaters. Because they were Oneders instead of Wonder, like WOND. You gotta watch that. You need to add that to your list.
Look, I totally didn't know how to say jicama. I still thought it was jicama. I'm totally so.
I mean, we on purpose say jalapeno, and that's so we've noticed that our oldest has started or jalapeno. And so like our oldest has started saying that. And so we were like, oh no, it's jalapeno. And she's like, is it?
Are you sure?
Pretty sure it is.
I heard way back in the day, my first foray at 18, listening to the sales experts and all that kind of stuff. And there was one lady, and her and her family were from like the hills of Tennessee. So not little on the backwoods side. And when she started earning more money and she got into these bigger circles, got into fancier parties, and you know, the tray of little things, and she
Whores divorce.
Horny dorm. No! I was like, even like at that time I was so proud. I was like, even I know they're hors d'oeuvres, but then I mess up jicama. I was like, oh, never mind.
Well, I think I get my sense of humor from my dad, and my dad he says things phonetically just to be funny. Like he'll say his knee hurts, and you know, so like
such dad joke.
Yeah, so it's something I've grown up with, but now that we're passing it on to our kids, it's kind of like, oh,
maybe it's not so funny.
Maybe we shouldn't do this right now while you're still learning, and then maybe once you've learned things, then we can dial it back in.
So tell me about, because in our like this is try two, right? We're still recording. We're good.
Test.
Okay, good. So previously you had started out talking about photography when you were little.
I mean, so my dad had a Pentax K1000 film camera, which is the standard like hobbyist go-to camera. And he had a bag and it had all the lenses, and he would go out and take pictures. So we'd be looking in boxes of pictures, looking for something specific, and it would be like flower, 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 airplane, airplane, flower, clouds, flower, tree, flower. So, I mean, he was really, like, into it, though. And, it had come... I think the story is it came from his dad, the love, of photography. And so I was totally into it. And then I can remember I was 10, and I had I know you're going to remember these, the 110 cameras that had the little... piece of film that had the two like rounded edges and then the little straight piece, and you just dropped it in your little click
and it then fold over, right? And then had a little strap to it.
It did, yeah. Yes. So I didn't have the click, which was like a rectangle. I had the long, skinny, like a bar, like a giant candy bar kind of, and it would go in the back, and it had a strap. So when I was 10, we went to Washington D.C. on a school trip, and it was my first school trip, and I was so excited. So my parents gave me like three rolls of film.
3 rolls of film.
1 roll of 24, 2 rolls of 36.
Oh!
Like I didn't even know 36 rolls like existed. And kids out there that are listening, film is something you used to put into a camera to capture pictures.
Right.
Oh, gosh.
Oh.
So I had 3 rolls of film, so I couldn't waste it. And I was going on my first trip to somewhere, Washington, D.C., that was very scenic. And I grew up in Eastern Kentucky. And so this was big city. Like
I can't imagine choosing.
This was amazing. So my friends all had more film than I did. Of course, they did. And they would just take the camera and like flash you in the face and be like, ha, ha, ha. And it'd be a terrible picture of like your mouth, But I never did that. Oh, yeah.
Way before the internet.
Way before the internet. So then I was waiting. Because it's like, sure, I could take some pictures of me and my friends. But I'm going to see some really cool stuff that my parents aren't going to see and that my brother's not going to see. And I'm going to take some really cool pictures home to them to show them. So that's kind of when I knew that photography was going to be in my in my wheelhouse because it's something that it was in the back of my mind when I was 10. So then as, I got older, I was the girl with the camera at every event. Like I was the yearbook photographer. They'd be like, oh, we need pictures of Spanish clubs, like pancake breakfast. I'd be like, I'm your girl. Like, let's do it. Stand over here. Oh, there's the window. We got to stand over here. Like I had a very basic fundamental understanding of lighting at that point. And it was just something that I wanted to do, but I didn't go to college for it. So I'm totally self-taught, but it's like, and this was pre-internet, really. I mean, digging for information, getting old photography books, like just digging, like learning, trial and error, like.
Because there's a difference between, and some photography skills are taught skills.
Right.
Right? Like how to hold the camera, lighting, and I'm pointing because I have lights in here just to create some extra, you can actually see us. But there's a lot of technical things you could teach, but there's an aspect of photography that some people just have what we call an eye for, right?
Right.
Like you see the world differently in such a beautiful artistic way, and it comes through this lens of a camera.
Right. It's kind of a curse, though. If you ask my husband, he'd be like, ugh, we can't go on vacation anywhere. Because she's like, I'd put a bride over here. I'd put a bride over here. Children, stand here. Like, because I don't want to be in the pictures. I want to create the pictures. So a lot of times it's hard to get me. And I'll only have my big camera. So then it's like, well, who's going to take our family? Picture. So it's a hard balance, but yes, I see.
So you're not the, hey family, let's do this.
Sometimes I am. Sometimes no, very rarely am I that person. It's been done a couple of times. I think a couple. More so because my 5-year-old requests it than anything. She calls them shelfies. She wants a shelfie.
Of course she does. She wouldn't be your child if she didn't.
I know. So she, like we do plenty of pictures, but, like when I'm driving, I see the rim of light on a car from the sunset. There's this neat little trick where you can stand outside and you can hold your hand up and you can turn around and you can see how the light falls on your hand and you can see the shadows. And that's what I use a lot of times. If I'm unsure of the conditions, I'll just be like, oh, where's the light falling? Oh, see here now my hand's dark because the window's there. But if I turn this way now, it's flat, but I'm, well illuminated. If I go over here, I got some shadows, but it's still not too bad. But if I'm here, it's heavy shadows. So that can help me in a pinch, kind of figure it out. And that was just trial and error, figuring that out. Oh, wait, the back of your hand is one of the most sensitive parts of your skin, like it catches light really well on everyone. And so why not use that as a gauge for your light if you don't have the equipment?
So again, if you aren't actually watching the video of this, you totally miss Misty swirl around in the chair demonstrating that whole move. So
I forget.
Right. Yeah. And that's fine. That's why I do this both ways.
Right.
Because I don't want to miss a thing from anybody.
Right.
Okay, so what has been one of the biggest challenges that you've had to overcome, aside from photography guy?
So I started, full force in weddings. And weddings are tough. Like you spend a lot of time focusing on one day. You spend, a lot of brides spend an average of 1.5 years to put all of their focus into this one day. So you get people that kind of like miss the forest for the trees, or, like they're so focused on this one thing that they miss all the things around it.
Right.
So, sometimes you'll run into people that are trying to take control away from the bride, like dealing with couples, their parents. It's an emotional thing because it's a huge investment too.
Yes.
It's a lot of people. Typically it's 3 families. It'll be 2 sides, the bride side, a groom side, and then the bride and groom themselves that are all investing into this one, thing. And, sometimes there are challenges like, there could be a challenge on, I had a couple several years ago, I was pregnant with Harper, that, we were shooting their engagement session in December. December light is very different than July light. It's a different color. It's a different feel. It goes down faster. Sun sets earlier.
Right.
The sun is further away, so it's not as yellow and bright and goldy.
Okay, that explains it, because I was like, how is it different? It's still the sun.
Right, but the sun is further away from where you are in the winter, because
makes total sense.
The temperatures are colder. It's that whole thing. The sun stays, the earth is rotating. So it's that same idea that the sun is in a place where your hand is basically darker, like I was saying earlier. So the temperatures are colder. The light doesn't hit you directly, so it kind of, it envelops you. So the bride had sent me a Pinterest board that had beach photos from the summer.
Oh.
And she was like, we want our photos to look like this. And so you just have to be able to... So I run into people that don't understand that lighting's different. And another thing that you have to just have the knowledge to tell them. Well, the sun is going to set at this time. The sun quality is going to look like this. The sun temperature is going to look like this. Like, you're not going to get these glowy beach, fun in the sun, high in the sky pictures. We're doing these pictures at 3:00. The sun's going to set at 4:30.
They're not going to look the same.
They're not going to look the same. The sun's going to be way over here. You're sending me pictures where the sun is way up here. Like, we can do that if you would like to postpone your engagement session to the summer, but we can't do that. This is the day you picked. This is the day we show up.
You're not going to get that.
And you're not going to get this. I'm happy to do those poses, but again, if you guys aren't this comfortable as this couple that you sent me in the pictures around each other, then you're not even going to get those poses. And that's not my fault.
Right.
I don't like copying people's poses, but if that's what you send me, we can try it. But if you guys aren't as natural posers as they are, let me help you get into it more. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, because I would think, especially with 2020 and all of us going to virtual. Look, not everybody's used to seeing themselves on camera, and it becomes a very. I'm thankful. I practiced a few years ago. I started in 2015 doing a 2 Cent Tuesday type of thing.
Sure.
Pick a topic, give my opinion on it, and it got me practice to be able to see myself in the camera. So I'm very comfortable in front of a camera now. I don't have any issue with that because it's not near as scary. But some people who don't have this experience, this whole video and photography and a camera can seem very intimidating. And so then you tighten up like a test.
Right.
And of course...
Did you see my video too? Is that what this is about? You saw my video?
No.
Oh, girl. Okay. That's a story for another day.
Okay. We'll get back to that later. But it can be like the experience of a camera and somebody else in your moment. Like it I'm sure to them would feel like, I know I'm nervous about trying to get my next stage of photography done for my business.
Sure.
Like a headshot was one thing that was rough enough for me, and I wasn't used to the camera. Right. I already know. I'm like, I've been doing all my stuff all by myself. Right. When somebody else comes into that moment. Right. It's nerve-wracking a little bit. So, yeah, if they're already not comfortable, like, posing, and now you add all these extra elements, how do you get them to lighten up?
I tell a lot of bad jokes. So my husband...
Awesome. Best answer.
My husband, Chris, tells me that I practice self-deprecating photography, because what... I do is I like to tell them dumb stories about me. So if I'm photographing you and I tell you a dumb story about me, something dumb that's happened, or, oh my gosh, I was at this place and I tripped and fell in front of the whole wedding. So you make a face at your, spouse, fiance, friend, whoever, but then you laugh and your whole reaction drops. And you're relaxed. And so that's the money shot. I don't care if people roll their eyes at me or make fun of me, because the moment after, I'm waiting and it's gold, because you don't know that I'm ready for you. You think that I'm just talking and that I'm telling you all the stories that I tell, by the way, are true. And that probably is a sad thing. I'm sorry, Kristen and Tom, because I've told the story about dropping your rings through the deck. at the Adirondacks like so many times, and that gets me so many looks and so many laughs. But it's a true story. I was stacking their rings up on the deck and the wind blew. And they just rolled right through the little slat in the deck. And I had to army crawl, shimmy underneath the deck to get them.
Crap.
They were there. They didn't go anywhere. I didn't drop them in like a mole hole. And she knew that I did it. She watched me do it. And she was like, oh, it's all right. Just go get him. So, it couldn't happen on a better day. But right. So they,
right, I get it, see?
And the couples make that face where they're like, oh my gosh, she really just told us that. And then they laugh and smile, and that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
So, that's how you do it. But if you're not comfortable with your, like in this engagement session, they weren't comfortable with each other. And so why would I ask you to snuggle and kiss like this picture that you sent me if I'm not even sure if I'm going to get you to hold hands, like because of your reaction to each other?
I'm just going to say it. Are you sure they actually got married?
They did.
Really?
I didn't shoot it.
I'm like, if they're not comfortable, like...
I know, but some people are like that, though.
Well, I guess
and I've seen all kinds. There are some couples, like I had a couple who the girl was a physical therapist, and she knew how to move her body. And a lot of times I know what I want, and I can see the picture in my head before I take it. But getting people who have never posed for professional photos to do those things,
right.
It's really hard for me to then use words because I'm like,
you just want to like grab them in position.
Right. And it's especially hard now because of COVID because
you can't.
I don't go anywhere near, I'm keeping my distance. And what I'll do is I'll tell, I had a wedding this weekend and the bride's train wasn't perfect. And it's like, oh, do you mind like lifting it up and then laying it down? And they didn't do it right. And I was like, oh. I had my mask on. I went over and I told her to look the other way. I just like did it. But, usually I wouldn't even think twice about going and touching and like, I'd be like, is it okay if I touch you? But this bride, she was a physical therapist and she understood her body. And I'd be like, can you like lean your body on your left foot and like drag your right hip? And she'd be like, you mean like this? And I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. No one's ever done that before. Like, can you be all my brides? Can we get married every weekend? And I was,
on the first try.
I know, because I have the vision in my head, and if you can't see what I'm thinking, and I'm like, maybe bend your arm here, maybe like lean your. Oh no, that's not it. Okay, no, it's not you, it's me. Like let's go this way.
You're totally different language right now. Yeah.
So that is, but I tell a lot of really funny jokes. I tell really funny stories about dumb things that I've done. I will tell them the photography story. Like, those are the things that get people to like, look side eye each other. But then the reaction right after is perfect.
It's perfect. Okay, so I always ask, a handful of different questions
sure.
to everybody. So what is the best piece of advice you've gotten that you use over and over?
Ooh, so I have a banner in my office.
Okay.
And it says, woohoo.
Okay.
And basically it just means celebrate yourself. Celebrate your small accomplishments. Woohoo. Like I booked an event. Woo! I did it. Don't forget to celebrate, because I think something that people don't understand with a professional photographer is it isn't show up and click, go back and edit, send you your pictures. There's contracting, there's billing, there's accounting, there's taxes monthly, there's sales tax reports, there's marketing and advertising. And
it is a business. It comes with all of the business elements.
Right. And as a creative business owner, sometimes those tasks take me longer than somebody who may be like a numbers person and I'm very lucky to be married to a financial guy, and like he sees things in black and white and I see things in rainbow colors and
sun shadows
and sun shadows. So it is helpful that when I get stuck, I can be like, I'm stuck. Can you help me? On taxes or, forms. And we have people that do our taxes for us, and that's been a huge godsend. But I feel like I want to do the things because it's my business. My name's on the door. So I don't want to, and maybe I'm a little type A for that. Maybe. Maybe. But I want to have my hand in every part of my business. I don't want to, sure, there's been times when I've hired editors to edit my photos and then I'd get them back and be like, this isn't my style. This isn't how, and then I would have to re-edit them.
And this is a huge challenge for a lot of small business owners.
Right.
Especially, and it doesn't matter what the revenue is. It doesn't matter how big the business gets. It's hard to let go of what is your stamp on the business.
Right. And my stamp on the business is me.
Exactly. Like you are that style of the business.
Right. And so when people, I apologize profusely and, sometimes things take a couple of days longer, but it's because you hit me at tax day and tax day took me all day, or you hit me on, the day where my marketing budget is due, to renew, and I have to review everything to see if it's working or if it's not working, and I have to change it. And that usually entails...
Let you market your business? What?
A little bit. Probably not as much as I should, because unfortunately, I don't have 60, 70, 80, 90 hours a week to work on the business side of my business. And so some things fall through the cracks. And to me, I hope to, goodness, it's never client work, because client work is the most important thing. Word of mouth referrals is the most important thing to me.
Absolutely.
And I want somebody to have a great experience all the way through. I want them to have amazing photos to look at and look back on. I'm capturing those memories for them. I want that part to be great. So sometimes the marketing will fall off, or, I'm not posting on Instagram enough, or I'm not doing social media enough, or I'm not blogging. Heaven forbid I'm not blogging enough. You know what I mean? It's all the things that I just don't have. It's like Jesse Spano. There's never enough time. I don't have enough time.
That's okay. I'll see you back in a year whenever you need some marketing help. Will that work?
Yeah, but I don't even have the time to acknowledge time to give someone to help me with, you know what I mean?
I absolutely know what you mean, because I'm in that spot right now. I have to carve out time to get things set up to even delegate it to somebody.
Exactly.
So that is definitely one of those huge factors as a small business, especially if we're trying to scale it and you have to be able to bring on a team of people. It's like, first of all, who do you need first? What are they going to do? Can I trust them to do it the way I would, that reflects me?
Right.
Or do I even care about the process? I just need the end result. All of the decision, just making the decisions wears people out in a day.
It does, yeah. And, put into the fact that I'm also a mom.
Yeah, then there's that. And of course now with 2020, you're having you're at home with school.
Right. Luckily our 5-year-old goes to preschool every day. But yeah, our 3rd grader is home. And so we have to balance, my husband is working from home as well. And we're balancing who gets to teach her which subjects. We get the assignments, and then...
He's doing math, though, right?
He totally...
He's doing the math.
He does math and science. I do English, writing, reading, social studies, and some of the special area. She does gym on her own. And then French, we rock, paper, scissors to see who does French with her. I mean, she can get 75% of the way there. Right. But we have to watch over her when she turns things in, because she's not turned things in, and then that's been an issue. So there's a lot of stuff she can do independently, which we're thankful for, but I mean, there's a lot of stuff she can't. Yeah. And we still have to be, over top of her. And if you're trying to run a business, my business is in my home like this. I have a formal living room that I use as my desk area. It doesn't have a door on it, which is the biggest problem ever, because I hear what's going on in my home and I get up and I walk in. So as soon as my butt hits the chair to do work, it's I need an hour to work on my business. Edit, upload, all the things. And then I'll hear something go on and be like, ugh, and I'll have to get up. So I have discovered I was I think like 3 weeks old, 3 weeks ago, I was today a year old when I found out that I could put my Beats headphones on.
I was going to say, did you ever try the headphones yet?
I have the big Beats headphones that are like they're black and red. They're really aggressive.
Obvious.
And I mean, they're aggressive looking from behind. And I realized that I could listen, because I miss live music is what I miss the most. Yeah. And I can listen to concerts on YouTube with my headphones. And I can get so much done. And then the girls will walk in and come around the corner and be like, "Oh, mommy's working." And they'll leave and I'll be like, "Oh."
It's the visual sign of do not disturb.
Yes.
Right?
It is. It's amazing is what it is. It really has changed my life in the past, 2 or 3 weeks.
So in your industry, because I know each photographer, because Joe Halsey is also going to be a guest of this season. And it's been funny because I'm like, oh, he's married to a banker.
Right. There are several parallels here.
But it's funny because you guys have different styles. So even though you're doing this, just like in my industries, we may do the same service, on paper, photography.
It's never going to go away. It's never, no.
So in your industry, you have people who have just this spectrum of style. Mm-hmm. So who influences you most when you're...
So, my favorite photographer is Annie Leibovitz. I think I have several huge photo books of hers that I just comb through. I love her, Vanity Fair stuff. What I love about her is there'll be phases. Her work always is signature. She has a signature style. But what I love is her style is affected by her mood. So you can see when she's having a darker day, she flags her lights so they don't necessarily fall on her subject, or she, she'll have moods, and that's amazing, because in photography we go from shooting, the happiest day in a couple's life,
right,
to a newborn session, which is very difficult on everyone. Don't let anybody tell you any different, because the baby starts crying and then they have to guess, the mom wants to pick him up and you have to say, "Oh, let's let him cry out for just 30 more seconds." And you almost got it. So it's very stressful and exhausting for everybody.
Right.
To children's portraits, which you have friends that have kids,
yes,
it's exhausting.
Look, I have been the person that randomly at Disney held the baby's toy behind the photographer.
Oh yeah, that's so I'm a solo team, so I'm holding the toy and the camera and hopping on one leg to try to get it. So
they don't care about your jokes.
Right. So you try to create a signature style. So what I've tried to do is try to create a signature style, one that isn't overly photoshopped, as close to in camera as I can get it. Maybe black and white, maybe color. But it is affected by my mood. And my mood doesn't change. I'm not a mood swingy kind of person, but it does, on days when I get up and I'm like, this is an amazing morning. There may be more bright and sunny kind of expressions. Sometimes I'm looking for tears at a wedding, just depending on what. It depends on the emotion that I'm feeling, the emotion that I'm seeking out when I'm shooting. So, but my style, I feel like, is pretty consistent. It's colorful. It's, pretty close to in camera as I can get. And that's what I want.
So what, let me check our time here. Oh, good. We're doing great. So we've talked about all kinds of things.
I know.
It's been so much fun.
Do I need to twirl again? I feel like I need to twirl again.
Well, because I'm one of those, I don't like dead air, right? Because I grew up, I started in radio 16. So one of the things, though, I always ask people about, what does success look like to you? What does that mean for you?
Wow, these are good questions. My rep wasn't prepped, but success is doing what you love and not working a day in your life. Mm-hmm. When you do what you love, then you don't work.
You don't have to work. Yeah.
Tax day, it's a terrible day.
The government doesn't care how you label it. They still get their money. But yeah, it's because then it doesn't feel like it's work.
Right. Yeah, I mean, the past week, I had somebody in my studio who did headshots. I had a 10-month-old in my studio just for fun to play. And then I had a fall family session out at a park, which was fun. And they brought their hairless cat, which is amazing. I'd never seen a hairless cat up close, and they are frightening, but it was like...
They're skin.
I know.
Right? They're just skin. That's weird. Like, if my cat was skinned, that meant that she had an infection of some sort.
So it was very strange to look at her, to him. But, I mean, he was cool. Like, he mewed a lot. And so that was entertaining because I like to have music on in the studio. We were in the park, so it was kind of like music. I mean, it was cool, and the fact that the family wanted to bring it, like, I'm glad that you felt so open that you say, hey, can we bring our hairless cat? I'm like, yes, sure. Absolutely. Because most people bring a dog.
Yeah.
And they're like,
yeah,
we'd like to bring our hairless cat. And I was like, of course, that makes perfect sense.
So it reminds me of Kim Possible and Ron Stoppable with the Rufus the Naked Mole Rat.
Which I love. Mo Willems, we read a lot of Mo Willems, and he talks about he has a book about the naked mole rat gets dressed. It's great. Wears a tuxedo, feels a little overdressed, it's a great book. And then I had a wedding on Saturday, and it was my first wedding, really of the year. And you just have so many different jobs you're doing.
Yeah. So
it's a cool job.
Okay, so tell us your favorite story so far.
Favorite story. Okay. So I shot, so I've had the opportunity when I was in Connecticut to shoot some celebrities. And that was pretty awesome. So two short stories. So one, I worked as a contractor for the Norwalk Aquarium in Norwalk, Connecticut. It's just a Long Island Sound aquarium. They have some seals and they have some fish and a shark tank, and it was pretty cool.
Usually aquariums have fish.
Well, no, I just mean it's a Long Island Sound. It's not like a huge, these fish are found in Asia, or these fish are found in Washington. It was just for the Long Island.
Just those fish.
Yeah. Okay, so it was just those fish. So I was a contractor, and I got to do their special events, and then they would have, sometimes some celebrities come, and I would, capture them in the aquarium, and then I'd capture them as they were speaking to a crowd. And then usually I was the one who was in the entourage that got to walk them to the different, the VIPs are waiting to have pictures with you, and then we used to, so I used to be in that little group that used to walk with them, and we would talk and stuff. So, I mean, some cool people over the years. Jack Hanna was one of them.
Oh, yeah.
So Jack Hanna, in their auditorium, he did this animal show.
And that would make total sense, the aquarium.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So he brought some animals, and I was so excited because I had went to a Jack Hanna camp when I was 5 or 6 with my cousin in Columbus at the Columbus Zoo, where he is from. And I was so excited because, I had seen him before. That was part of my childhood, and he was in Connecticut, and there was no real connection to my childhood in Connecticut. And so I was so excited. So my daughter was my oldest, she was probably 6 months old. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to get an autograph picture, because he was given all the staff autograph pictures before we went in. And so he was like, sure, I'll sign one for you. And I was like, well, Jack, I got to tell you, I went to your camp at the Columbus Zoo. I was 5 or 6. And he looked at me, and I think he was doing the math in his head. He was like, oh. So I get the autograph picture. I get home, and I'm telling my husband, and I was like, it was amazing. And he brought this, and he brought this. And it was and I was a child at that point. I was a child. And I was like, and I got this for Addison. And it says, to Misty, love Jack. Because in my, excitement to meet him, I said to write my name.
Sorry, Addison.
Oops. So I have an autograph picture from Jack Hanna. I don't know what she has. So
that's fantastic.
She was 6 months old, so it's no big deal.
She doesn't know any different.
And then I shot a celebrity wedding where the couple that got married, the groom was R&B manager for this big R&B act. And so I was totally nervous. And at this time I was pregnant. This was the same year. I was pregnant with Addison.
Same year.
So
both events in the same year.
Both events in the same calendar year. Wow. So I had my best friend shoot with me, and I normally have a second shooter for big scale events like that.
And just to clarify, we're talking about
Photography.
Photography.
Yes, second photographer. Yes. So my best friend shot with me, and then because I was pregnant, I couldn't lift a lot of stuff, and I was very pregnant. And so I had a third photographer whose job was just to like hold our light sticks, carry my bag. And then she shot candidly some, but she wasn't. So there were 3 of us on our team. And I didn't know who the celebrity was because I'm terrible. We lived in California for a little bit. We go to New York all the time.
It just wasn't top of mind.
I just can't pick people out in person. And like we would be out to dinner when we lived in California in LA.
You hadn't actually photographed him yet.
Well, no, and I'm terrible at like seeing people in real life and knowing that that's who that was. I swear I thought I saw Alex Trebek at a Chinese restaurant in California one time, and my husband was like, "No, it's not." And I'm like, "Yes, it is." So I'm terrible at this game anyway. So I say to my best friend, I'm like, I don't know where the celebrity guy, and there were several there, but like he was in the bridal party, and she was like, "Oh my gosh, Misty, he's the one with the Volkswagen-sized diamond earrings in his ear." And so like, there's 20 brides or groomsmen, and I'm like, "Oh, hello." So sometimes I'm so focused on my job that I don't, yeah. So that's
you are
me in a
not
nutshell.
Paparazzi.
No, I'm not paparazzi.
You're a professional.
I'm a professional.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so as we wrap up our conversation, what advice would you give other business owners out there?
Stick with it. Just keep going. Don't if spite is your motivating factor, which is what I think we've learned today. Find a motivating factor and keep going. If you believe in your product or your service and you believe in yourself, I mean, you have to have a realistic expectation for success, as we've talked about. You just have to know what the end game, is. If your end game is to be a millionaire and to be famous because of your product or service, it may not work out the first time. Keep at it. But
you need to know what you're getting into for that.
Right.
That's why I help people with strategy.
Right.
Like, where do you really want to go with this?
Right.
And then we develop the plan. And like, you can get there, but do you realize how much money you have to have ahead of time to become a millionaire?
It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot. So, if you have incremental goals or you have just an understanding of what you're doing, because all the time I run into photographers who literally have just started, and everybody starts somewhere, and there's nothing wrong with starting out. And I'm a big supporter of new photographers coming into the market, but a lot of times they think because they have an Instagram account then they can get new business. So I just think we got to baby step that ahead. Service is key, and kind of go from there.
Absolutely. Well, Misty, thank you so much for your time.
Yay!
And I'm really hoping, if you can hear that off in the distance alarm happening, it's time to get back to work. That's what that is telling us. Because I left my phone in the other room, but I forgot to turn it on silent.
Oh,
so
sure.
The alarm is now going off and says the time is done. So thank you, Misty, very much for being my guest today on Small Business Small Talk. It's been an absolute pleasure, because this has been a very fun one. And the dynamic is totally different doing this in 3D versus just across a Zoom screen.
Right. So. I'm definitely better in person than I am over video. Don't ever watch that video of me for the...
Now I gotta go find this
video. No. I'm like, hello, I'm Misty. It's...
Oh, for the virtual expo? Did you do something for the virtual expo?
No, for the virtual bridal show.
Oh.
And I turned one in, and I got texts from the 3 staff members that said it was terrible, and then I needed to redo it, and I was shocked that all 3 had watched. So it was, in their defense, it was awful. It had none of my personality in it. I was trying to do it quickly. I tried to do it quickly while my kids were outside, and I didn't want anybody listening to me, and it came across as boring and
you had your own anxiety at that moment, and it came through.
Yes, I'm never in front of the camera.
And that's why we love having people like you behind the camera to help us not feel so anxious in front of the camera. So again, thank you very much for your time today on Small Business Small Talk. For all of you watching or listening, hopefully both at some time, because this is definitely one of those episodes you want to catch it live. There she goes. Again. Make sure that you're subscribing to any of our channels that you prefer to listen to or watch. We're on YouTube. We have the Facebook page. We're Spotify, iTunes, and across a handful of other channels. So please subscribe. Comment. Let us know what you think of this. And Misty, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you if they have more, they're curious or want to follow you?
My website is www.mistyenright.com, or Instagram is Misty Enright Photo.
Misty Enright Photo. And I'll have that information listed in the description of this particular episode of Small Business Small Talk. So thank you for your time today, for joining us and listening in or watching. And again, another shout out to my sponsor partner, which is the Chamber of St. Matthews, located here in Kentucky. Again, get involved in your local community because it pays off big time. Friendships are awesome. And, you know, mimosas never hurt. So with that, thank you again for your time today and enjoy it. Be sure to tap in again to the next episode of Small Business Small Talk in another week. Thanks. Woo!